Okej, then we are live. And welcome to this guided embodiment journey into the pelvic bowl. And the pelvic bowl is like this kind of sacred, actual bowl that contains the primary, the foundational parts of our awareness. You can look at it a little bit like our essence, our being, our consciousness, our awareness is this kind of fluid being that also becomes the animate body. And then in different body parts resides the different parts of this awareness. And in the pelvic bowl, you have the kind of foundational parts of this awareness that is you. You have the root chakra or the base or the lowest part of the central channel, the energetic channel. Um, and you have the sacral or the womb or um, the hara or the power center there, a little bit higher up in the pelvic bowl. And this journey, we're going to explore this in the physical form. We're going to explore it in the body, although it's also a very energetic journey. And you can always expect that wherever you bring your awareness into the body, wherever you bring the breath, wherever you just bring the energy through your focus, you will start to stir things up. You will start to explore things. You will also quite possibly experience sensations or emotions or just insights or and when you're in the journey you always kind of take into account that whatever comes up is a part of this thing we're exploring. Whatever emotion, whatever memory, whatever thoughts are suddenly popping up in your mind, hold some kind of relationship to the area we're going to explore. So, with that, you can begin by lying down. Let's begin lying down, and you can prepare yourself. You can find a comfortable position with the spine semi straight. So maybe that's on the carpet or on the yoga mat, or you can also be on a more softer surface like a mattress. But it's quite nice to have a little hardness to the surface as well. It gives a little extra massage and a release with gravity as we begin to dive deeper into a more relaxed state. So you get comfortable, you spread your legs and arms and just wiggle about and find your alignment, what feels good, what feels right. And you can place, if you want, a pillow or pillows underneath your knees and thighs. Just take a little bit of weight away from the lower back. And you can also place, if you feel quite tense in the neck and shoulder, you can also place some kind of elevation, just slight elevation underneath the head. But you want in this practice, in this work, the spine at least semi straight, if it's possible for you. That has to do with the opening of the energetics along the spine, which is very much a part of this process. So, as you're coming into your position, the moment is here, where the now kind of unlocks the journey for us. So the journey always takes place in the now moment. And the more our awareness gathers up in the now, it's like the air can become thick with your awareness. It's like you're filling the now with your presence. And this is where the magic begins. So you can start to just notice the now, notice. In one way, it's something to become aware of. So it's like you can be aware of the room you're in. You can be aware of if there's any sounds or feeling or in the room or wherever you are present in this now. But there's an extra layer to becoming aware in the now. It's you can be aware with your kind of mental mind head capacity, but you can also be aware with your entire body. So you can become aware to the now by feeling the now. So you can feel the air surrounding you. You can feel the kind of presence in the room in this moment. You can become aware of your presence, your body, your being inside this body here in this moment. And then also we can then become aware that we're lying on this floor or surface. We're lying on something which holds this kind of, it's offering us something. It's offering us the opportunity to relax. So you can, as you become aware of the floor underneath your legs, you can actually exhale and give the legs, give the legs to this offering. Allow the floor now to hold these legs up. So as you exhale, allow the legs to become slightly heavier. And you can kind of just dive into the feeling of heaviness itself. You can feel this heaviness up along the legs. And then you can become aware that you're also having the floor underneath the sitting bones, underneath each butt cheek. So the offer is also there, the offer for the hips to surrender and let go. Lean on the ground. Give its weight and let it sink down. So as you exhale, you can kind of allow the breath to exhale all the way down fluidly into the hips, and the hips can release towards the ground. You can maybe feel more pressure there, um, as the ground is kind of pressing into the butt cheeks, and the butt cheeks are kind of softening down. And then you can continue up along the spine. So in this beginning of the journey, it's a nice process of just softening and relaxing into the process. That's where we also opening and become more receptive, the landscape or where the journey takes place. So you can just become aware of the tailbone. It's there inside the hips, the lowest part of your spine. And you have this internal awareness that kind of knows where the tailbone is. So you can just direct your focus to what you experience as the tailbone. And maybe you feel it. Maybe you feel it very subtle. Maybe you feel it quite loud. Maybe it takes you a little time to feel. Sometimes it's like that. So you can just hold your awareness there in the lowest part of your spine and just allow the breath to come more and more also into the area. So as you exhale, you can play with just softening around the tailbone. It feels like you're kind of, again, using this offering of the ground and allowing also the tailbone, the spine itself, the backbone of this entire structure to start to experience this feeling of leaning on something, of not having to, in this moment, hold itself up. There's a lot of energy in the system, in the fascia, in the muscles, used day to day on holding the structure up, on holding some kind of stability and protective layers, uh, for this very delicate essence that lives inside this body. But right in this moment, there's an offering of the floor to take this job now from the spine. So all the tissues can kind of soften around the tail, and you can allow the tip of your tailbone to sink down, to kind of feel that it's also slightly more held here, held, deepening the process of relaxation in the deepest part of our being. So then you can continue to exhale and allow the spine then maybe a little bit higher up from the tail. the lower belly. To also, maybe as you exhale, maybe you can soften a little bit. It's like you're holding your awareness deeper inside the body to where you kind of perceive the spine to be. And there you exhale. You exhale and just allow the exhale to do what it does. Allow the exhale to play with gravity. So you can almost let gravity come more in here. You can become heavy with gravity here. And naturally, gravity just gently guides the, the lower back part of the spine a little bit closer to the ground. Softening and relaxing along the spine like this is also opening up us more energetically. It's opening more deeper parts of our being. And you can continue up along the spine. So maybe now the spine, that's the middle part of your torso, so upper part of your belly. You just imagine or perceive where the spine is inside here. And as you exhale, you can also use the breath by breath, to just soften in the area, soften around the spine here, soften, and just start to mm, rekindle some kind of connection to the area. It doesn't mean that it happens all at once. Our journey will unfold, and things sometimes work step by step, and maybe sometimes we need more time to really connect deeper into the body, but the process has begun. And as you exhale, just play along the spine there with your breath. So from the middle part of your torso, you just perceive where the spine continues a little bit higher up. So this will be the spine that's behind the sternum, behind the chest bone, the spine that's in between your scapulas, the shoulder blades. And the breath can kind of dance its way up here. And as you exhale, you can just soften in the area as well. So the spine here can also take this offer, receive this offer, the offering from the ground, to allow it to hold you in this moment. So you can do other things. You don't have to be the one now holding yourself up. You can kind of let go and instead receive. It also opens up more for our fluidity. The fluidity in our body becomes the fluidity of our awareness and our ability to journey. So continue to exhale, and maybe you can feel the spine a little bit higher up. So now we're in the spine, approximately the throat, the beginning of the throat. And just to start the process of connecting and opening along the spine, you use your exhale to just soften around this part of the spine as well. Also becoming aware that there's also a floor underneath you here. And the floor is just an extension of the earth, of the ground, of what grounding means. So as you observe that there's a floor underneath the neck, underneath the throat, you can also exhale and allow the spine. Maybe it's ready to surrender a little bit and sink down closer to the ground. You can feel how that just naturally also softens a little bit here, opening the energetic channel that moves and runs along the spine. And then you can move your awareness higher up. You can follow the spine, that becomes the neck. And in the highest part of the neck, all the way almost to where the neck becomes the brain stem, right in that crossroads. You can also allow the breath here to exhale and just soften. Allow the neck to sink down. Allow the head as well to just follow that um, invitation. So the floor is of course also underneath the head. You can feel it there pressing into the back of your head. So there's no doubting that it's there. It's definitely there. It's something you can feel. So therefore, when you exhale, you can just allow your head to sink down into that support. It's something extra magical for this body part to feel that sensation, because the mind is probably the last thing when it comes to letting go of control. So when the whole structure, when the skull itself just feels this feeling of sinking, you can feel it inside the head. It's this message almost to the mind that it's okay now to just kind of step back. It doesn't have to be in charge, because right in this moment the skull is held. You are held. So then this kind of spreads out to each and every body part. As you exhale, you can allow it to spread out the arms, and the arms can also take this offering from the ground and just release themselves to the ground. And you can feel the heaviness. You can feel the heaviness in the shoulders, in the upper part of the chest. You can feel the heaviness out the arms. You can feel the heaviness in the fingertips. You can feel the heaviness from the head, down the chest, out the arms. You can feel the heaviness down from the chest into the belly. So there's this heaviness in the whole upper body. The heaviness is almost like an energy that floats around where you allow it. The heaviness is the same as the energy of grounding. So you're just allowing this grounding to spread throughout the body. So you can feel the heaviness in the upper body, the head, the arms, all the way into the hips. Just allow the heaviness as you feel it. And you can allow this heaviness into the thighs, into the knees, into the calves, legs, shins, all the way out to the heels and feet. Let's see if you can just feel this energy, that's heaviness. Feel it down, down through the legs, in the legs, all the way out into the feet. And that was our first process where the journey begins. It just begins by settling, by landing, by settling into the journey. And from here, we venture on. So you can gently move your fingertips, your toes. You can just sense if your body wants to wiggle a little bit or stretch in some way or move around. Maybe you take some time to kind of come just a little bit up from the depth itself. And then when you're ready, you can bend your knees and place the soles of your feet on the floor in about hip width distance. And then you can place your hands on the lower part of your abdomen around the hip bone somewhere. And also after some movement, there's also often always this moment where we settle in again, where we settle into the body. So then you can feel the feet now in a slightly different position. You can feel the feet being placed on the floor, and you can feel the pressure that's there in between the soles of the feet and the floor. So you can feel the heels, you can feel the balls of the feet, and you can maybe even feel the toes touching the floor. This offering and again, this kind of connectedness to the ground. And the ground throughout this process will be a part of the support of supporting us in going deeper, as the nervous system kind of establish a deeper sense of relaxation the more the body is experiencing the ground, because it means that there is something to lean on, there is something to kind of allow the body to be held by, so the nervous system doesn't have to use all this energy on um, contracting and creating this kind of stability within the body, because right now the ground is that stability. But it also has to do with energetics. So there's some areas in the body where we exchange energy with the earth, and one of those areas are the feet. So the where you feel the pressure in between you and the ground is also where there's this energetic exchange. And then you can allow your legs to just be heavy, so the weight of the legs are sinking into the heels. And then you can notice your knees, and you can feel the thighs. And as you exhale, you can allow the thighs to just kind of sink into the hips, into the sockets of the hip. So there's this weight there, this weight in the thighs, and you can allow this weight to just sink into the hips. And then you can start to become aware of the next pressure point with the ground, and that's the sitting bones. You can feel that there's inside each butt cheek, and where the sitting bones are kind of meeting the ground, there's a lot of pressure. And again, this is another place where there in this moment is a lot of energetic exchange also with the ground. So as you allow the thighs to sink into the hip, you can notice also how the hip can kind of sink down to the ground. You can release the weight in this position as well. Gravity there is a part of the process that you just allow. You just allow for gravity to kind of give the hips to the ground. And this tiny little shifts that happens in the hips, when the hips kind of release just a little bit towards the ground, the spine, the whole entire spine that runs up along in the torso wants to adjust to that adjustment. So then you just allow the spine up along inside the torso to adjust. It just wants to release a little more. Every tiny adjustment that happens in the hip follows along each and every vertebrae in the entire spine if you allow it. And the body, the natural intelligence, just want to kind of allow the natural flow of alignment through the body. So you notice that it feels very natural to just allow the spine then to adjust, to release a little bit towards the ground. It goes all the way up into the neck, into the skull. So the head kind of sinks a little bit towards the ground. You just allow the heaviness here again, and the shoulders fall down, and the chest kind of sinks. And then we can start to explore the breath a little bit. So, right now in this moment, you have your hands in the lower part of your belly, which is one area in the body where we breathe. So, you can just First thing, explore where do you feel the breath here? Is it a big movement? Is it a small movement? Is there a very little movement? Almost no movement? And always with the breath, you're first just exploring. You're not changing the breath. You're not trying to get the breath more in here. You're just allowing yourself to be exactly where you are in the now moment. That's always where, from that position, you fully start to actually allow the breath. The moment we try to steer our energy or awareness towards something that should happen, we're moving away from the now and we start to kind of steer the breath. And the breath actually constrict a little bit. So just allow the breath to flow as it does in the lower belly. And maybe you can feel the movements in your hands. Maybe you feel when you inhale that the hands move slightly, they lift they are being lifted. And as you exhale, you can notice how they fall down. And maybe you can feel the warmth from the hands radiating into the abdomen, the belly. And maybe you can also feel that there's a beyond the warmth in the hands, there's presence in the hands. It's a part of this consciousness, this awareness that is you. So in the hands, it's one of the body parts where it's the easiest to kind of connect to the awareness that's living inside your being, that is you. So there's this kind of presence from the hands just being there. And the abdomen can feel this presence. And maybe also the hands can listen for some presence in the abdomen. So the connection also goes the other way around. You're just listening, noticing, and remember. So nothing is supposed to happen all at once, or we're just opening doors and the journey ventures on. And you can also then maybe just tune, if we're opening up a little bit to this area, tune to if there's any sensations or emotions that you can kind of notice here. Any feeling or whatever might seem random or whatever's coming up. From your thoughts to emotions to sensations. And then just to open this breath in the kind of integral way, we can just become aware also of the rest of these body parts that can breathe. So you can put your hands now a little bit higher up to the lower part of your rib cage. And just the like right in between the upper part of your abdomen, the lower part of your rib cage, in that area somewhere. Maybe your hands are a little bit more to the sides. You can feel the outer side of your rib cage, or maybe it feels more comfortable in the front. You kind of explore how you want to place the hands here. Again, offering up this awareness, this presence that comes through the hands. And you can also notice how the hands kind of gather your presence here, the total presence. It's like we're focusing in on this body part. And you can feel The hands touching your body here. You can maybe feel some heat, some warmth radiating from the hands into the body part. And then you can also start to explore how is the movement of breath here? Is your belly lifting the hands slightly up with the inhale? Are they sinking down with the exhale? Is that a very subtle movement or a very big movement? Does it feel constricted or free? Just very curiously explore. You also want to sense into if the breath is kind of moving out to the sides or backwards, not just in the front. And when we're working with the breath, it's a very essential part of opening to this essence, this presence of our awareness, of our energy in the physical form. So wherever the breath is less fluid or free, there's also less openness, less freedom in the energy in the same area. And potentially you have this movement up along the entire part of the spine, touching upon all the different energetic centers and all the different parts of our awareness in the body. Um, but then we also have more constrictions along some parts of the spine if we're having some blockages or are experiencing less freedom in the expression of some parts of us. So it's a very nice beginning of just opening and beginning to um, just start to activate the awareness a little bit up along the spine. You can put your hands a little bit higher up to the clavicles, so all the way in the top there, in the top of your chest. And maybe your fingertips can actually touch the clavicle. Maybe they're lying in the area somewhere, not touching fully. You will notice what feels comfortable for your shoulders. But your awareness is now getting up in this body part. And you can keep your focus by the clavicles and actually explore if you feel any breath underneath the clavicles. It's almost like the inhale somehow can kind of come up all the way up to the upper parts of the lungs and actually lift the clavicles slightly with the inhale. And then as you exhale, they fall down. But it doesn't mean that the breath is fully here already. You just explore how the movement around the clavicles, underneath the clavicles are. Maybe you also notice that the clavicles move slightly outwards with the inhale and then sink inwards and down with the exhale. It's really opening up the upper parts of the breath in the lungs and the movement of the energy along this part of the spine. You're exploring if it's feeling free or constricted to breathe here, both with the inhale and the exhale. The inhale is this opening expansion, and you're noticing if this expansion goes all over the area or to some parts of the area. And the exhale is this release, this surrendering, this relaxation. And some body parts, some tissues gladly release, and other tissues sometimes need a little time to release. Some parts of us like to hold on. So the exhale is also very interesting to explore. So when you exhale, maybe there's a potential to exhale slightly more. Maybe Maybe you feel that the exhale is just fully free. You're just noticing. Now we're in the upper part of the spine, but you also have the potential to kind of notice the breath even higher, so up along the neck. There's even a slight movement in the jaw when you breathe, and there's a slight movement in the forehead or deeper, a little bit behind the forehead where you have what's called the third eye. And there's some movement in the skull itself, and there's some movement in the top of your head. So right now we're not going to go deep into it, but it's very nice to just create a little bit of activity along the entire spine and the energetic channel when we're going to dive into the channel into the pelvic bowl. So we have some nice movement along this channel as we continue our work. So you're just noticing, is there movement in the jaw when you breathe, in the jawbone up towards the temples? Is there some movement there when you inhale? Is there some movement there when you exhale? If you feel some movement there, maybe you can notice how that also is some movements on the sides of the skull. Maybe there's this subtle movement behind the facial muscles up towards the third eye. And maybe there's even some movements then in the top of your skull. Just explore if you can feel some very subtle, or for some, maybe it's not subtle, movements in the entire skull up to the top of your skull. It's almost like you can breathe a little bit more in the top of your skull, just with the intent of just softening here, with the intent of just opening um, the crown center, the other um, end point of the energetic channel running along the spine. So we're going to go deeper into the other part of this channel, into the perineum, into the root, into the. But now you're here in the top of your head, and you're just intending with your breath to just soften and opening this part of the channel as well. So that our channel is open for the work. For some, they might feel even some very slight sensations as we open the crown a little bit. It's almost like there's a little wind in the top of the head, or some very subtle sensations. Beautiful. And then you can notice if you need to move again, if you need to wiggle a little bit, or take your thighs up to the belly, or stretch, or yawn, or make a sound, or a sigh, or whatever the body needs during the process. Getting into the body is always also a little bit of a release and of an opening, and there's movement of energy. So the body also has its own intelligence in how to release that energy. Maybe it's a sound, or maybe it's a stretch, or and then you can roll over on your side and come into this fetus position. And rolling up over on the side, it could be nice to place a pillow underneath your head. Um, a little bit of an elevation there, and just curling up. Rolling up over on the side, and gives us a new relationship with the ground. Now we have the ground presenting itself underneath the side of the body, which you can feel. Working with the body in the now moment is also always about anchoring ourselves to the now by actually feeling these ideas and things that are presented to us. They're not just ideas, something you can actually experience. So, right now, you have the ground underneath the side of the body that you can feel. So, underneath the side of the foot, you can feel where it presses against the floor, and then you can exhale and just give the feet to the floor. Let them lean all that they are, all their weight on the floor. And this continues up the legs and knees and thighs. So the thighs just kind of fall down on top of each other and on the ground. And then you can notice where the side of the knee and the side of the thigh is touching the ground. So there's a pressure there. The ground is pressing up into the thigh. And that gives us a very interesting pressure point in the top of the thigh. So the side of the hip, where you can feel that the entire weight of the hip is leaning on the floor. So there's a lot of pressure from the floor pressing up into the side of the hip. And you can kind of find the alignment where you have this pressure right in the center there, giving the entire weight of the hips to this point. And this point is a part of opening the hips. There's a lot of nerve endings and interesting fascia connections and muscle attachments here on the side. So now the floor is kind of pressing up into that, offering again this opportunity to release, to let the floor handle things now, let gravity deal with things. You give the weight of the hips down, and you can feel how the side of the floor, how the side of the hip is pressing more into the floor, how the floor is pressing more up into the hip. And it's almost like you can then allow the breath to also just float into this area. And with your exhale, it's like you can release just a tiny bit. It's almost like the sensation of the side of the hip kind of grabbing, holding just slightly on. And then when you just allow this body part to breathe, the exhale will take care of it. It would just give this tension up. And opening the tissues here will start to open and free what's going on inside the pelvic ball as well. And maybe you can feel it already, that there, as you release the sides of the hip just slightly into the ground, you can also mirror this to the other side of the hip that's faced up towards the ceiling. It's like both sides of the hip soften its grip around the hip. The grip around the hip is kind of the first thing we deal with when venturing into a hip. This grip is the nervous system kind of asking the connective tissue and the muscles to tighten a little bit to create a sense of stability in the lower part of the spine. So tightening around and in the hip is to kind of give our being, our body, this perceived sense of stability in the unstableness of the world. But there is a potential and a possibility to find stability in other ways than tightening. It's just this kind of last solution for creating stability. Right now, the floor and the connection to the ground, for instance, is one of those other opportunities. It's stability, it's something you can lean on in the state of being, something that is always there in whatever you stand in, deal with, meet in this world. Something that's always there offering you support, offering the support for you to be all that you are and to be held in the process. So as we soften slightly the grip around the hip, you can also maybe sense that there were some subtle sensations around the tailbone as we did it. There's some subtle sensations around the tailbone because the softening around the hip will also start to loosen some connective tissue that goes to the tailbone itself. So you can just allow your breath to shift its focus to the tailbone. It's a different experience when we're lying in this position. It's almost like you can feel the tip of the tail sticking out on the back there. Maybe it's easier to feel the tail here, but you just explore if you can feel the breath around the tailbone and also in the tailbone. So the breath begins here. The breath in the body begins in the tail. There's this tiny rocking back and forth. So with the inhale, the tail kind of rocks backwards, and with the exhale, the tail kind of rocks forward. And so the breath, if the breath is the movement of life through our body and the breath begins here, it's also the beginning of our energetic channel that moves along the spine. So having the breath begin here is of course then moving the energy up along this channel, moving the energy up along the spine. But then there is also quite normal to have some tension in the area. Any tension in the area around the tail or in the pelvic floor will also become less movement of the spine here. So there's less movement of this wave up along the spine due to the frozenness here. But it's so beautiful to experience the body because the body is never at the standstill. It's never really frozen. Things are so in the reality of it all, so fluid, so energetic. It can be sometimes hard to perceive because we're also very physical. We're having this strong sensation of being physical, but the building blocks to all physical are the energetics, and the energetics are so fluid, so movable. They don't really stand still. And the moment we start to stir up into the energetics of the body, things move quite fast, things open, and we come back to the true nature of who we are, and that's this fluid energetic being in a physical form. um, but you just explore the breath, and maybe as we hold our focus here for some time, you will start to notice more movements here. The energy naturally start to kind of awaken. There's movement in the tailbone, which also then means that we're opening up to this movement, this wave-like movement up along the entire spine. This tiny rocking in the tailbone as you breathe becomes this tiny wiggling movement of each and every vertebrae up along the spine. So each breath you take is a massage of all things spine, the vertebrae, the spinal fluid, the energetics, the nervous system, the central nervous system, all things central for our state of being. And maybe as you feel the tail becoming more visible, it's like it's defining itself more the more we hold our awareness here. It's like you can feel the bone more. It's like you can it's like drawing itself out, becoming more visible or perceptible. And then it's also easier to feel the tailbone and the spine up from the tailbone. So the lower part of the lower back, from the sacrum up into the lower back. You can kind of allow the definition of the tail to continue to define the spine a little bit upwards here. And maybe then you can also sense if you're feeling the breath in the tailbone, maybe just a little bit or more, some more. see if you can feel the breath also coming then a little bit more up from the tail into the lower parts of the spine. Then, as you exhale, you can just allow your lower belly to fall out, to hang out. And for each exhale you take, you just allow the lower belly to hang out. So releasing the belly, the abdomen in this area is then helping us kind of soften the area around the spine in this area. So we continue to open up for this freedom of energy in the lower part of the spine. So as you exhale, just allow the belly to hang out. Maybe you can allow the belly to hang out a little bit more for each exhale you take. But it becomes a more deeper thing. It becomes a release that's going deeper inside the abdomen, almost to where you perceive the spine to be. So it's like you're trying to release your belly from around the spine in the area. So the belly just flops and hangs out, relaxed. And you can also do this in the upper part of the abdomen. So again, we're touching a little bit upon the other areas where we explored the breath and the potential of the freedom in the area or less freedom. But releasing the upper abdomen as well, just as you exhale, allowing the upper abdomen to sink down and out, is starting to again allow for more freedom of breath. So even though we are exploring the lower part of the spine, the root chakra, the the sacral part of the spine and the chakra, they go so hand in hand. It's a big beautiful puzzle piece. It's like when you have the frozenness in the diaphragm, you have the frozenness in the pelvic floor. When you have the frozenness more higher up in the chest and the throat, there's frozenness going up all the way down the spine, all the way into um, the pelvic floor and the muscles in the area. So they're all connected. We're opening up this body. Um, so releasing the upper part of your abdomen is then starting to allow the diaphragm to kind of soften. And the reason why the diaphragm often can be held a little frozen is this area where we feel the emotional energies of this world. It's like where you probably felt a knot at some moment in your upper abdomen, or it's all the feelings we don't want, or the confrontations, or it's this contraction here that happens on a daily basis, on very subtle levels, but we're contracting here all the time, all the things that feels kind of a little unstable for this perceived fragile physical form uh, in this reality. So as you exhale, you just allow the upper part of your belly to hang down, release itself down. It's almost like you can feel the abdomen sink down out of the rib cage and out. It's the opposite feeling of when we hold emotions or when we hold and contract. It's the opposite. It's the exhale that comes that you release down and out. And this you can feel soften and start to kind of soften a little bit around the spine in the area, opening. And this then spreads. It spreads up along the scapulas. There's some connection with some fascia, some connective tissue from this part of the spine up along the scapulas, the shoulder blades. So as you soften in this area, you can start to feel that there's some kind of softening and release along the scapulas. It's almost like the scapulas can relax. And this comes all the way up into the shoulders and the clavicles. So the shoulders also falls a little bit down. And this then can continue to spread up along the spine between the scapulas. So, although you don't have a belly here that you're just exhaling and letting out, you can pretend almost that you have a belly here that you're just like letting hang out, and there's something softening between the scapulas. And this then spreads to the neck that just kind of falls down and soften a little bit. And it spreads to the head that also just falls down and becomes just slightly heavier. And as we're in the process of opening deeper, releasing into being, the state of being is presenting itself to us more and more. So you have this moment, this opportunity now to just tune into the actual feeling of lying here with yourself. Tune into that feeling of sinking into the self, of being here with yourself in the now. And the most delicious feeling of being here with the self in the body, of feeling yourself in the body. It's our home, so it feels very much like coming home. And then from here, you can wiggle a little bit your toes and fingertips. You can notice or feel whatever you need. And maybe, again, the body wants to stretch and move some energy or yawn. And gently, gently, you start to move a little bit more. So you're just like, where does the body need to move, open, stretch, twist, whatever feels good, as we're kind of awakening a little bit more again. We're going to slowly, slowly come up onto all fours. So you take your time doing what the body needs until you feel ready to leave this first uh, first level of connection with the ground and come a little bit up away from the ground. So we're going to come into first just come up on all fours, and maybe the movement continues here. As we're coming more into the body, naturally also the feeling of the body increase, and there also uh, comes the feeling of what the body needs. Where does it need to stretch? Where does it need to move? What feels good? Maybe there's some parts of the spine that needs to move in a certain way. And you're there within the body at home, feeling yourself in the body in this flow, feeling yourself in the movement, feeling what feels good, what feels right. And then as you exhale, you can allow the hips to come back into child's pose. And when you come into child's pose, the body just naturally wiggles a little bit and move around, and you notice where you want the knees, where you want the feet. Maybe you even want a pillow underneath your calves or your shins. Maybe you want a pillow in between the thighs and the calves. Maybe you want a pillow underneath your chest or underneath the head. You are in your body, and this process of coming into body is always an experiment. You have to get to know the body. So you try, you feel, you sense, you tune, and whatever little inspiration or feeling you get, you experiment with. Maybe you want a pillow here, and you try and you feel. And then when we come into the position, there's the settling moment again. After movement comes the settling. This is how stillness helps us journey into the more subtler realms. So as you exhale, you just allow the stillness to settle the body. You can exhale and allow the weight of the hips to kind of sink down towards the ankles. You can feel the ankles kind of softening. And you can allow the chest to kind of fall down towards the ground. You can feel how the belly is very close to the thighs, even at some points pressing towards the thighs. So you can really allow the belly to fall down towards the thighs and just lean its weight downwards. And as you exhale, you can allow the upper body to just lean, give its total weight to the elbows as well, to the forehead, to the head. So you're reestablishing the connection with the ground. The more you release and give the body weight to the ground, the more you can feel the ground. So there's this reestablishing of, okay, the connection of stability and support is here for me to be exactly as I am in this moment. And then we can move our awareness down again to the tailbone. So in this position again, there will be yet a new experience of feeling the tailbone and a new experience of feeling the breath there. You can again explore if you feel this very subtle movement of the tail going back and forth, back and forth. This movement of the bottom of the spine is very primal. It's like the most primal structures, like the little frog babies move with their tail, or even the form of semen, how they move with the tail. The spine is like that, and the tip of the tailbone is the end of that tail, this movement. The breath of life is the movement of the spine. It's the origin for all the life in the body. And in this position, you can also try to feel the physical body part where we access the root center. So the perineum, it can be easier to feel in this position, but it's also this very mysterious place that kind of like, it can be quite vague, but it's the area right up in between your legs. If you were standing with your legs separate on the floor and somebody took a flashlight and just shone the light straight up in between your legs, you would have the light beam straight into the perineum. So it's right behind the genitals and right before the anus. That little area there in between those two very important areas. And this area can often be quite tight or numb. The numbness often also just comes because it's tight. So we're kind of contracted. There's not so much energy there, and therefore we don't feel so much there. But since this is the end of our energetic channel and the establishment of our connection with the ground and the energetics from our channel, that runs down into the ground and to the earth. This area, it's very good to start having some movement and opening this area. It's like you can almost imagine that there's this energetic recycling system with the earth. So energy from you is meant to be released here, be released with the breath in the perineum, released down through the energetic channel and into the earth. And the energy of earth is meant to come up here into you, giving you, is the foundation of all the life force and all the things activating in you from below. So it's fundamental for the life in the structure. So having some movement and freedom in the perineum is fundamental for all things human, all things body. So we're just holding our focus there, and any place that's numb or quite vague in the body will always start to come to life the longer we hold our focus there. So maybe you're not sure, maybe you're like, I'm not feeling anything. Just keep your focus where you kind of perceive the perineum to be, and just hold the focus there. Continue to feel, and you will start to feel more. The longer you hold your focus anywhere, the more energy is directed there, the more energy is awakening there. And you will feel more. You can also then start to continue this exploration by exploring if you feel some breath in the perineum. Is it possible to breathe around or with or in the perineum? Connected to the movement in the perineum and the movement of breath here is the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor is this kind of group of muscles that is like it's like a trampoline in the bottom part of your pelvic bowl that's holding all the things that's above this floor up. So if you didn't have this floor there, your all the organs of the stomach, the intestines would just like pour out of the bowl. So it's the floor. And it's also one of the places that we freeze to create again stability in being here in physicality in a body. The hips is like the gravitational center for the body, and trying to create stability there is this um, is this effort to try to create stability uh, throughout the body. It's just a symptom of, of a nervous system of trying to survive in physical form and trying to do what it thinks is best for the body in this unstable world. But the freezing there is also more energetic. So the pelvic floor, the muscles itself, is like the physicality of it. But then, of course, you have the important organs inside the pelvic bowl, and but the essential life force also lives here. The sexual energy, the creative energy, the sacral energy. So in the root, we have this energy, this kind of creative energy coming from the earth up into us. And then in the second center, the sacral center, these energies are life force, the spark in the machinery that creates life, the creativity that is the very foundational creative force in our essence. So freezing up is also in connectedness with the freezing of this force, of our creative force, of the free expression of who we are creatively in all the ways we can express ourselves, um, in who we are, all the ways we create, all the ways we hold our masculine energy, our feminine energy, all these things. Um, the freezingness inside the hips is also a little bit of the places where we are not free to be this expression of our sexuality, of our creativity, of the expression of our femininity or masculinity, or in terms of our life force, our power, our energy. So then this freedom of breath in the area, the relaxation of the pelvic floor, also then becomes also more of a fluid awareness in the area. There's a potential for either being more frozen in your awareness in the area, or the potential of being more fluid and free with the ability to respond to any impulse with your creativity. But then, of course, we have the socialization of this world where a lot of this this parts of us these parts of us, the expression of our sexuality or the creativity, in relationship with the sexuality or the expression of the life force in us, there's some areas where we have kind of some programs around shame or holding back these parts of us. So then now breathing in this area will also of course stir a little bit, but it will also start the process of this freedom of taking back the fluidity of your creativity and your ability to react and respond with this creativity uh, in the meeting of anything you meet on your trajectory. So to feel the pelvic floor, you can actually cough very very silently, like you're, let's pretend you're in church or something and you have to cough very quietly. And this coughing, you can feel it inside the lower abdomen, you can feel it even further down into the pelvic bowl. You can feel it even almost around the spine inside the pelvic bowl. That's when you start to feel the pelvic muscles. When you start to kind of activate the feeling of the muscles, the feeling of whatever is contracting a little bit with your cough inside there, that's the muscles that also can potentially breathe, that you can breathe with, that they can be a part of your breath. So maybe the little cough kind of mapped out the area some more, kind of define some muscles or some tissues more, and then start to see if you can breathe there. The coughing is more like an extreme version of the muscle used there, but the breath is very similar in regards of the muscle use. So with the inhale, there's this kind of widening outwards in all directions of the pelvic floor, and with the exhale, it's the same kind of contraction that you did with the cough, but it's not forced. So it's more like the muscles are just having this slight impulse of energy running through them, making them slightly contract, almost glide inwards towards the spine. And when you feel the muscles with the exhale, you can also kind of use the same muscles to breathe in with. Allow the life force to kind of activate in the muscles. Very often, when the muscles have been frozen, it's not been so much life force, so much energy in them. Now you're inviting that energy up into the muscles, turning them on. And then you can notice how you can breathe with the pelvic floor, these muscles. And you're just experimenting. It doesn't mean that you're kind of feeling all the muscles at once, or just breathe and play with what you're feeling, where you're feeling the muscles. But the activations of the muscles in there, it becomes this widening out to the side, widening out to the back, widening out to the front. So there's movement with the inhale, widening out in all angles. And with the exhale, there's this kind of loosening inwards again towards the spine. It's almost like at the end of the exhale, you can just melt inwards endlessly. It's like you're imploding on yourself inwards. The energetic channel in the center of your body there is where you are endless, is where things are not so mentally easy to understand, but there's this kind of void. There's an access to it all from there. So as you exhale, in the most part of the exhale, you're feeling the muscles kind of slightly activate and contract. Just it's not force, it's not like really contracted, but it's this activations of the muscles slightly softly contracting inwards, massaging the energy there. But at the end of the exhale, it's not really contraction at all. It's just like melting, imploding into the void. And just to connect the two before we move on, you're still exploring this movement, the sensations, but see if you can just allow the sensations of the perineum to join in. So you were exploring the feeling of breathing in the perineum. It's also the breathing in the tip of your tail. Then they're connected. That means the movement of breath around the root chakra. Maybe even there's a pulse there. Always when you start to open the center, there will be more energetic flow from the earth, which becomes this more mm, loud pulse there, some pulsation. When you feel the pulsation or some pressure, you just breathe into that, allowing that energy to start to come up into the pelvic floor, into the second center. So if you feel some pulsation in the root chakra or in the perineum, you almost just like release into that pulsation and allow it to come up along the spine, allow it to come up into the muscles that are breathing in the pelvic floor, allow it to start to move upwards. And you can also notice how there's a wave going all up along the spine of movement that you can allow with your breath. With the inhale, it's moving up along the spine, and with the exhale, it's moving down along the spine and ending all the way down in the root, in the perineum, in the tip of your tail. You want to really awaken this movement of the muscles in the lower part of your spine to actually start massaging this life force, activating it um, to move up along the spine. The more you activate these muscles, the more the energy can actually have the momentum and the force and to come up along the spine. But then there's also the beautiful part of the exhale that moves all the way down again along the spine. And you want this exhale, the muscles to actually activate then the last part of your exhale in the perineum around the tip of your tail. So that's the final part of the exhale. And when these muscles turn on, that's where you have the release the most needed release of this recycling of energy in the body. And for some who are very tense here, we don't have this release so much. There's a lot of there's a lot of congestion in the system. And the more you have this activation of the muscles in the tip of your tail and the perineum with the end of your exhale, that's where you have the release. You can actually release down to the ground whatever is meant to leave your system, whatever is then supposed to be recycled and come up again as delicious life force. So if the exhale ends there in the perineum, in the contraction of the muscles around the tip of the tail, then the inhale also begins there, pulling the energy up along the spine. And up and down it goes. And from here, you can come back up on all fours when you're ready. And now that we have started to activate the sensations and the movement of these muscles in the perineum and in the pelvic floor, they quite possibly are also more loud here in this position. So you can feel them. You can feel if you move your hips to one side, you can almost feel like you can stretch your perineum, or how can you move your pelvic floor and move the muscles, stretch the muscles? What feels good to do with your tail to move the perineum, to stretch the muscles inside the pelvic floor. And then you can cross your legs and come back down into lying down. And then you find your position again. You spread your legs. You notice how you want to wiggle and find the alignment of the spine. We're just going to, maybe you still want your hands on the lower abdomen. It's really up to you, but it can be nice to just like feel, have the awareness more gathered in the area. But we're going to just continue what we're doing in the previous position. So you were exploring the breathing, the sensation of breathing with the perineum up into the pelvic floor. And how that also became this movement, momentum, this charge of energy up along the spine. But you can come back to the perineum first. And to play with the area, to activate the area, you can always contract a little, squeeze a little, relax a little, wiggle a little, just to kind of get in connection with the area. You can play with your breath and you can kind of squeeze a little more with the exhale, and you can relax and widen with the inhale. Maybe you want to wiggle the tail. Just really feel what also feels kind of natural, or what the body starts to crave. Often when we start to activate more energy in the body part, it starts to also want to move in a certain way, or it knows what it needs. And let's continue to play with that wave. So the breath begins in the perineum, the root, the tip of the tail. And there's this widening. It's almost like this pulling upward also of energy on the muscles. And this pulling upwards happens due to the pelvic floor widening. And then this natural pull upwards along the spine continuing. And then with the exhale, the energy moves down along the spine. And there's this very gentle, almost relaxating contraction of the pelvic floor. It just glides inwards. And the end of the exhale ends with this very gentle contraction of the perineal tail. Then again, the inhale begins there, and you're pulling it up, feeling the muscles activate. And for quite many, there are some places where tight in the pelvic floor, in the area in the pelvic bowl. Some muscles turn on, some use a little more time. But there is an ability to really start to activate the movement here, often to a much bigger degree than what we were aware of, what we were aware was possible. There can even be, just to play a little bit with the energy, some contraction back towards the anus. And then with the inhale, a widening and opening. And with the exhale, end of the exhale, this very gentle contraction. But then you can kind of, at the end of the exhale, you can also soften around the spine. Almost like you're softening to the inhale. You're opening to the wind of energy coming from the root, moving up along the spine. And maybe it also starts to then become more defined for you, the energy up along the spine. Maybe you feel the movement, some places more, some places less. Maybe it's very integral for you. Maybe you feel it up along the entire spine. You just observe and flow with the energy. And now that we have activated a lot of movement in the area, you can continue the breathing, but very, very gently, very relaxed. It's not like you're trying anything in this moment. Now you're just feeling. You can feel inside the perineum, you can feel around the anus, you can feel into the reproductive organs, the genitals. You can feel where the energy is. You can feel if you feel some pressure somewhere, or if it's pulsating, or feels tight, or feels open. Activating so much energy in the body part will start to kind of map out also where the energy is flowing in the area, where it feels more constricted. Always where you feel energy a little more constricted or wanting to open is where you feel some pressure. It's like the energy is kind of pulsating, knocking on the door, opening up energetic channels so that it can flow freely, fluidly. You can also then start to tune into the more energetic part of the sacral chakra. There are many words for this part. It's like the lower abdomen down into the pelvic bowl. There's the creative life force residing there. So, again, if we are this fluid awareness, all that we are is this one fluid awareness in the body. The different places this awareness is in the body is a little bit of a different vibration of awareness. So down here is the more the power, the life force, the creative life force, mm, the sexuality, but also so much more. And this center, you kind of feel when the energy is activated in the root. Naturally, the energy will start to kind of pulsate there, and it will start to flow up to the next center. So where you feel a little bit more pressure in the lower abdomen, down into the pelvic bowl, it can be subtle, but there's one area that's kind of like pulsating a little bit. And you will just start to allow this energy from the root, the pulsation, to come up into the sacral chakra. And you can look at this in many ways. There's many different spiritual modalities calling it different names. And then we have the mystery of the womb. The women have the actual organ of the womb, but exploring the sacral chakra is like you can look at it like there is a feminine side and a masculine side of it. There's the side related to power, both the feminine and the masculine. And there's the mystical cosmic ground void of the womb. But although the women have the actual womb, the men also have the energetic womb, that side of the center, that yin, endless void of creation place. But you're just following the energy. So you're just noticing the pulsation in the root, in the tip of your tail, and it's almost like you can ride those pulsations. It's naturally happening with the breath. You're just riding the pulsations upwards into the next area of kind of pressure. Or maybe you don't experience it as pressure. Maybe you feel it as energy, something pulsating, something. It's all the same. It's just how we experience energy. Maybe you even see. Some find it easier to feel, some find it easier to see with the inner eye. But whatever you feel, you can also kind of see. You can see it. However, the imagination or creativity is kind of drawing it for you. But you're still just following the energy, allowing this pulsation to take you deeper into the area, and allowing the pulsation to open the area. It's like it can massage. As you ride the wave, it can massage the area. Some parts of the area will be more contracted or less open, and other parts open. So wherever you feel this pulsation, the wave, just ride it up into the area, and allow this wave to kind of massage and soften and ride out the tension there. Naturally, this will also become the wave that continues up along the spine. So to whatever degree you are feeling that, it will also be connected with where we are less open, more open, where there's more movement of energy, less and movement of energy. So you're just allowing the wave to go where it goes. It will naturally start to massage and open all up along the spine. When you exhale, it moves down. And all this momentum begins in the pulsation from the root up into the life force, up into the sacral area. And you can allow it to continue on. So there's this general movement of energy throughout the being. It's like you're, in one way, cleaning the being. This movement is meant to always be there as this kind of like continuous regeneration of the system, of the energetic system. Maybe there's some body parts or some sensations that are becoming more visible to you. You're not confined to staying just in the lower parts of the spine. Maybe your focus is directed elsewhere to where the energy is now being moved. Remember, this is a big, connected, beautiful puzzle piece. So when energy moves someplace, maybe it needs to move and shift another place. It's connectedness throughout the being and the system. This energy you're activating and allowing as you're riding the pulsation, naturally it will start to massage its way upwards where the area and energy needs to be massaged and moved to open the flow along the spine, to open for the free expression of the life force in your body, to open for the free expression that is you in physical form. And as there's a lot of energy and a lot of movement, just tune for a moment to the sensations in the body, but also what's beneath that, the feeling, the feelings, the emotions. What's present for you? What are you tuning into? What's coming up? What's there? Just taking it in as a part of the process. And then when you're ready, you can start to wiggle again, stretch, whatever the body needs, whatever feels good. Maybe wants to twist or yawn or cry or make a sound or whatever the body needs. And then when you're ready, you can come back up into sitting position. So this will be the finishing part of our journey today. We've opened up and ventured into things, and this is only the beginning. But now we will just kind of finish the process for today. And as you come into a sitting position, you can place some elevation, a pillow or something, a blanket, a folded blanket underneath your sitting bones to ability for the hips so that the hips can kind of soften and relax into the foundation. And you can tilt slightly forward and kind of direct the perineum exactly downwards. So the hips have the ability to lean forward and the perineum will tilt slightly back, or the hips can tilt slightly backwards and the perineum will tilt slightly forward. So you're trying to kind of really find that alignment. It's a really important, a really a powerful alignment with the energetic connection of the ground. And you can spread your knees. Regarding on the in people have different hips, so how you spread your knees will give you a different sensation where you find the comfortable place or the most comfortable place. People can often have some issues sitting like this, but the more you actually work with these things that we work with today, opening the perineum, the pelvic floor, opening this, the movement in this whole entire area, will also start to open the hips and open the ability to sit more comfortably in the meditation pose. So then, with the perineum kind of angling itself directly downwards, maybe you still feel the pulse there. And maybe you can then also direct your awareness to what you're aligning the perineum to. So right underneath the perineum, then continuing down, there's the earth. It's like this ground power is the baseline for all the energetics that we've been working with today. It's where all of those energetics begin. And you can continue with this, and if you just continue straight line down into the earth, the perineum is also aligning itself directly on top of the center of the earth. See if you can just kind of the speed of light, just boom, boom, direct your focus all the way down into the center of the earth. There's an actual feeling in your perineum when you reach the center. It's like you're hooking up your energetic system here. You can always do a little test if it's possible to go even more into the center. And when you reach the center, maybe you feel it, see it, but there's a tiny little exaltation in the pulse in the perineum. So now you're just like, you're aligning yourself with this, the foundation for all life here on earth, the foundation for all things life in you. And you can just start to kind of feel the pulse, the energy of that coming up into the perineum. And then you can just continue to breathe, continue with the exploration we've been playing with the breathing in the perineum, around the tip of the tail, and the breathing that spreads like a wave into the pelvic floor, the breathing that comes up along the spine there. Just feeling that pulse, moving with that pulse. And eventually it can be the breath that moves up all along the spine, up to the crown, and with the exhale down again. And at the end of the exhale, there's this tiny little final squeeze in the perineum, which releases the energy down and also activates the energy more when it to come up. You can feel almost an increase in the pulse coming up, and then you can stimulate the system a little bit by going a little bit more on the active side of the breathing and kind of pulling that energy up the spine, allowing it to move down again, just continuing with that loop. And then you can place one hand on the lower chakras in that area, one hand on the heart. So we're just connecting our journey and the energies we've been working with down here to the energy of the heart. If you're still feeling that pulse in the perineum, the pulse coming up in the sacral area, the pulse up along the spine, you can also start to feel the pulse actually coming up behind the hand here in the heart. For a moment, we just sit here with the a little bit of the energetic of the heart meeting the lower centers, but also just taking in the journey for today. Maybe there was something coming up, maybe there's some insight, maybe there's just a feeling or sensation. What was for you here today? Maybe you for a moment can feel the heart, the little spark, the love coming all the way down into the sacral area and the roots, even down into the earth. And then it comes straight back up again, this power, the creativity, the life force into the heart. And kind of blasts up along the spine to the crown and opens us to all the love, all the power in this entire creation, in this entire universe. And for a moment, we're reminded of who we actually are. That's all for our journey for today. Mm, Always working with the body in this physical way. There's a lot of movement of energy, a lot of things in movement. So it can be good to just listen to what you need, what the body need, what you need to integrate, what you need to land, how you need to digest the experience. Maybe drink a lot of water to help the movement, the opening. As always, much love.